Hello and welcome to Story Sleepy, where we listen, we relax, and we get sleepy. I'm your host Jack. Thanks so much for tuning in. Tonight we'll begin a dreamy retelling of the classic Tale and the Beast. It's a perfectly autumnal story to lead you into a good night's sleep. Chapter 1, The Enchanted Garden. Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled at the edge of a great forest, there lived a young woman named Bella. She was not the most beautiful or the richest, but she had a kind heart, a bright smile, and an endless love for stories. She spent her days working at her father's small bookshop, where the smell of old paper filled the air and the shelves were stacked with tales from faraway lands. Bella was unlike the other villagers. While they busied themselves with gossip and parties, Bella preferred to lose herself in the pages of her books. She dreamed of adventures, of far-off places, and of love. But the people around her didn't understand her. They often whispered about her peculiar ways, and some thought her too quiet and distant. One day, a traveler came to the village. His name was Arik, and he was a man of mystery. He wore a dark cloak, his face mostly hidden by the hood. But his eyes, those eyes, they sparkled like the stars, as if he had seen the world beyond the village and knew things no one else did. Bella felt a strange pull towards him, though she had never met him before. Arik walked into her father's shop one afternoon, looking for a book on ancient legends. Bella was busy arranging a pile of books when their eyes met. She smiled softly, and for a moment, she felt an unexplainable connection. Arik nodded in greeting, then began browsing the shelves. "What kind of legend are you looking for?" Bella asked. Her curiosity piqued. He paused and looked at her with a knowing gaze. "I'm searching for a tale of transformation," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "Something that speaks of magic, of change." Bella raised an eyebrow. "A story about change? You might be in the right place. We have all sorts of tales, some more fantastical than others." Arik smiled, though there was a sadness in his expression. "I think I'm looking for something specific," he murmured. Bella handed him a dusty old book that she had recently discovered in the back of the shop. "This one is full of stories about enchanted gardens and magical creatures," she said. "Maybe it will have what you're looking for." Arik's eyes lingered on the cover. It was an ancient tome, its leather worn and cracked with age. He took it into his hands carefully, as if it held a secret. "Thank you," he said softly, then turned to leave, disappearing into the streets of the village. From that day on, Bella couldn't stop thinking about him. She had heard the rumors about a mysterious curse that had fallen upon a family in the distant hills. Whispers spoke of a beast, a creature trapped in a forgotten castle, waiting for a spell to be broken. Some said that the only way to break the curse was through true love. Bella wondered if Arik was somehow connected to this story, to this curse. One evening, as the sky turned violet and the air was cool with the scent of pine, Bella's father called her to dinner. As she was about to leave the shop, she noticed something peculiar. The book Arik had borrowed was sitting on the counter, opened to a page about an enchanted garden. She hadn't left it out. Her heart skipped a beat. Had he returned already? Curious, she began to read the page. It described a magical garden hidden deep within the forest, a place where time stood still, where beauty and danger coexisted. It was said that those who entered the garden would never be the same again. As Bella read, she felt as though the story was calling to her, but she didn't understand why. The next day, Bella decided to venture into the forest. She had to know more. As she walked deeper into the woods, the trees grew taller, their branches intertwining like the arms of old friends. The air was thick with the scent of earth and moss. And Bella's heart raced with both excitement and fear. Finally, after what felt like hours, she arrived at a clearing. In the center of it stood an enormous gate, covered in ivy and flowers of every color. It looked ancient, as if it had been there for centuries. The garden beyond it was hidden in shadows, but Bella could feel its magic calling to her. She hesitated for only a moment before she pushed the gate open. The air shifted, and she stepped into the garden, where the world seemed to stop. Flowers bloomed at her feet, and strange creatures watched her from the shadows. Bella could sense that this place was not like any other garden. It was enchanted, alive with power. But as she wandered deeper into the garden, she began to feel a presence. Something, or someone, was watching her. She spun around, but saw nothing. Her heartbeat quickened. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the stillness. "You shouldn't be here." Bella turned to see a figure standing at the edge of the garden, shrouded in shadow. It was a tall man, his features hidden by a hood, but his voice was unmistakable. It was Arik. "I've been looking for you," he said, his tone both urgent and gentle. "This place is not safe for someone like you." Bella was confused. "What do you mean?" I didn't know. I was just curious. I didn't think." Arik stepped closer, his eyes filled with an ancient sorrow. "This garden, it's not just a place of beauty. It's a prison. A place where things are trapped, things like me." At that moment, Bella realized that Arik wasn't just a traveler. He was the key to a mystery she had never imagined. And the garden, she feared, was only the beginning of a much darker tale. This is just the beginning. Let me know if you'd like to continue, and I can expand the story further, or adjust it to your preference. Chapter 2, The Curse Unfolds. Bella. Arik took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "You shouldn't have come here," he said again, his voice tinged with regret. "The magic of this garden can change a person, sometimes in ways they can't even understand." Bella's curiosity surged despite the warning. She took a deep breath and stepped closer to Arik, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean by things like you? Who are you really?" For a long moment, Arik didn't answer. His eyes seemed to grow distant, as though he were lost in a memory. "And Belle, I wasn't always like this," he began, his voice soft. "I used to be a prince, a ruler of a faraway kingdom. But that was before the curse that brought me here, to this garden, a curse that Bella's heart skipped a beat. "A prince?" she repeated, astonished. "But why? Why would anyone curse?" Arik sighed deeply, as though the weight of the past was too much for him to bear. "It all started with greed, and with the desire for power. I was young, naive. I had everything, wealth, beauty, a kingdom. But I was selfish. I cared only for myself, for my own desires. One fateful night, an old beggar woman came to the castle. She offered me a rose, a symbol of kindness and humility. But I turned her away, mockingly. I didn't think it was worth." He paused, his eyes darkening. In truth, she was no ordinary woman. She was a powerful sorceress. And as punishment for my arrogance, she cursed me. She transformed me into a beast, both in appearance and in soul. As a beast, I was bound to this garden, this enchanted place, for eternity. The curse would only be broken if someone could see beyond the beast and love me for who I truly was. Arik's voice trembled slightly as he continued. "But no one has ever been able to look past the curse. The magic of the garden twists everything. Over time, I lost hope. I believed that no one could ever love a monster like me. So, I've spent countless years here, alone, waiting for someone who might break the curse. But afraid to let anyone get too close. Afraid that I might only bring them pain. Bella listened intently, her heart aching for the man standing before her. She could feel the weight of his sorrow and the depth of his loneliness. It was a pain that mirrored something inside her, something she had never understood until now. She had spent so much of her life feeling like an outsider, too different from the rest of the village. And here, in this garden, she finally understood what it meant to be trapped. I didn't know, Bella whispered. I had no idea. I thought the garden was just a story. Arik shook his head, a sad smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Most people think it's just a legend, a fairy tale meant to entertain. But this place is very real, and so is the curse. Bella felt a spark of determination deep within her. There was something in Arik's words that touched her heart, a feeling she couldn't ignore. But maybe there's still a chance. Maybe we can find a way to break the curse. Arik's eyes widened in surprise. You think so? He stepped back slightly, as if the very thought had never crossed his mind. But no one has ever been able to break it. Not in all these years. Bella met his gaze, her eyes filled with resolve. Maybe no one has ever truly tried. Maybe what's needed is someone who believes that love is stronger than magic, stronger than any curse. For a moment, there was silence. Then, to Bella's surprise, Arik smiled, though it was a smile tinged with uncertainty. You are brave, Bella, he said softly. But this is no simple task. The garden is full of dangers. The magic here can twist your mind, distort your very being. It's not just me who is cursed. Everything in this place is affected by the curse. Bella nodded, her heart racing with the unknown. But she could not turn back now. There was something deep within her, a voice telling her that this was the right thing to do. She couldn't leave Arik in this prison. Not after hearing his story. Not after feeling the connection between them that had sparked the moment they met. I want to help you, she said with conviction. I want to break the curse. Arik looked at her for a long time, as though trying to decide whether to trust her. Finally, he spoke. Very well. But be warned, Bella. There are trials ahead, trials that test more than just your courage. The magic of this garden will challenge you in ways you can't imagine. And even if you succeed, there's no guarantee that you will be able to break the curse. I don't care, Bella said, her voice unwavering. I believe in you, Arik. And I believe that love and kindness can conquer anything, even magic. Arik's eyes softened, and for the first time in years, a flicker of hope appeared in them. Then we will face this together, he said quietly. The garden seemed to come alive around them, as if responding to their words. The flowers bloomed even brighter, and the trees whispered secrets in the wind. Bella felt a strange energy in the air. A magic that wasn't just about spells and curses, but about something far more powerful, the power of a promise. With Arik by her side, Bella stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges the garden and the curse had in store for them. Together, they would uncover the secrets of the enchanted place and find a way to break the spell. But one thing was certain, the journey ahead would change them both forever. Chapter 3, The First Trial. The next day, Bella and Arik set off deeper into the garden. Arik, though once a prince, moved carefully now, as if every step he took was calculated, as if the garden itself might turn against him. Bella, on the other hand, was determined. her heart filled with a newfound sense of purpose. She could feel the magic in the air, surrounding her, guiding her. "Where are we headed?" Bella asked as they walked. The garden was beautiful, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it was hiding something darker. "We need to find the heart of the garden," Arik explained. "It's where the curse is strongest. The heart is a magical nexus, and it's the key to breaking the spell." "The heart of the garden," Bella repeated, her voice full of wonder. "How will we know it when we see it?" "You'll know," Arik said cryptically. "It calls to you. But there are dangers ahead. Trials that will test your resolve." They walked in silence for a while, the atmosphere growing heavier. Then, without warning, the path before them split into two. One path led toward a field of golden flowers, their petals shimmering in the sunlight. The other led into a dense thicket of trees, where the shadows were thick and the air smelled of damp earth. "This is the first trial," Arik said quietly. "Choose wisely. The right path will lead you closer to the heart, but the wrong one will bring danger." Bella looked at both paths, feeling a surge of uncertainty. Which one should she choose? The golden flowers seemed inviting, but something about the dark thicket called to her, too. It was as if both paths held something important, but she couldn't be sure. Arik, sensing her hesitation, spoke again. "Trust your heart, Bella. It will guide you." Bella took a deep breath and stepped toward the thicket of trees, feeling an unexplainable pull in that direction. As she did, she glanced at Arik, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. Together, they ventured into the shadows, ready for whatever lay ahead. Chapter 4, The First Trial. The air grew cooler as Bella and Arik ventured into the dense thicket of trees. The path was narrow, and the shadows seemed to stretch and twist around them, as though the very woods were alive. Every rustle in the underbrush made Bella jump, her senses heightened, and her heart racing. She could feel the weight of the garden's magic pressing down on her, as though it was testing her every step. Arik walked beside her, his presence a comfort, but even he seemed tense. "Stay close," he murmured. "The magic in this place can tea." Bella nodded, but her thoughts were far away. She had no idea what she was walking into, but she trusted Arik, and something deep within her told her that this was the right path, the one that would bring them closer to the heart of the garden. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a connection to the darkness around them. It wasn't fear she felt, but a strange sense of understanding. As they pushed forward, the trees grew thicker, their branches intertwining above them to form a canopy that blocked out much of the sunlight. The path seemed to grow narrower with each step, and the air became thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Bella's eyes adjusted to the dim light, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Suddenly, there was a low growl. Bella froze. Her breath caught in her throat as she glanced at Arik, who had already drawn closer, his hand on the hilt of a dagger she hadn't noticed before. His eyes were scanning the trees, alert. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Arik didn't respond immediately, his gaze fixed on the shadows around them. Then, with a sharp motion, he pulled her behind him. "Stay back," he instructed, his voice firm. "Whatever it is, we need to be ready." From the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, followed by a low rumbling growl that vibrated through the air. Slowly, the creature emerged, a massive wolf-like creature, its fur dark as the night, with jagged claws and teeth that gleamed in the half-light. The creature's eyes were full of malice, and its mouth dripped with saliva. It was unlike any wolf Bella had ever seen, larger, fiercer, And more terrifying, Arik stepped forward, brandishing his dagger. Though his stance was defensive rather than aggressive. "We don't want to hurt you," he said. His voice calm but commanding. "We are just passing through. Let us go." The wolf growled again, taking a step closer. It wasn't backing down. And its eyes seemed to flicker with recognition. As if it knew Arik. It circled them slowly, its tail swishing behind it. Bella felt a shiver run down her spine. "Be careful," Arik whispered, his eyes never leaving the creature. "This is no ordinary beast. It's part of the magic of the garden. And it's been sent to test us." Bella felt a surge of empathy for the creature. Sensing that it wasn't entirely evil, she stepped forward, away from Arik, her voice steady. "Please. We don't want to fight. We just want to find the heart of the garden. We mean no harm." The wolf paused, tilting its head as if considering her words. For a moment, it seemed to soften, its growls diminishing into quiet growls. But then, with a sudden lunge, it sprang forward. Bella gasped. But before she could react, Arik was already in motion. In one swift move, he threw a small pouch from his belt at the ground. And a flash of light erupted, momentarily blinding Bella. When her vision cleared, the wolf had disappeared. The trees around them were still. The only sound the gentle rustle of the leaves. Arik exhaled deeply, wiping the sweat from his brow. "That was too close," he said. "The garden tests you in many ways. You must stay alert, Bella. The magic can twist even the most innocent creatures into something monstrous." Bella nodded, her heart still racing from the close encounter. "I had a feeling. I don't think that wolf wanted to hurt us." "Not really." Arik gave her a sharp look. "It's not about what the creature wants. It's about the magic. The garden doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about the trials it sets before you." "But we passed the trial, didn't we?" Bella asked, trying to steady her breathing. Arik nodded, though his expression was still tense. "We did. But only just. The garden is sending us a message. It's not going to be easy. We need to keep moving. The heart of the garden is still ahead. But the trials will only get harder." Bella's mind raced. But she knew one thing for certain, she couldn't give up now. Not when Arik needed her. And not when they were so close to breaking the curse. They continued on, the path winding through the thicket, the trees growing even darker as they ventured deeper into the garden. Chapter 5, The Second Trial. The deeper they ventured into the garden, the more strange and surreal the world around them became. The air felt thick with magic, and Bella could see faint glimmers of light flickering through the leaves, like distant stars. She had heard stories of enchanted forests before, but nothing could have prepared her for the sense of awe and danger she felt here. The path eventually opened up into a small clearing, but this one felt different from the others. The air was heavy, thick with an almost palpable presence. It felt as though the very ground beneath their feet was watching them. "This is the second trial," Arik said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The heart of the garden is close now. But to reach it, we must face our deepest fears." Before Bella could respond, the air around them shifted. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, and a low, eerie voice echoed through the clearing. "To reach the heart, you must face what you fear most," the voice intoned. "Only then will you be worthy to continue." Bella's heart pounded. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. Arik didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped forward, his face growing pale. "Stay close," he muttered. "Whatever happens, don't let it pull you in." A cold wind howled through the clearing, and the shadows twisted and stretched. Suddenly, Bella felt a wave of fear wash over her, a feeling that had nothing to do with the surroundings but everything to do with her deepest, most buried anxieties. Before her, the air shimmered, and in an instant, she was no longer in the clearing. She found herself back in the village, standing in front of her father's bookshop. The streets were busy with villagers, but none of them seemed to notice her. She turned, and there, standing at the door of the shop, was a version of herself, distant, cold, and unapproachable. This version of Bella was dressed in fine clothes. Her face hardened, as though she had become the very person she had always feared, someone who had forgotten the kindness and love that made her who she was. Her other self spoke. Her voice icy. "You are nothing but a dreamer, Bella. You will never fit in. You will always be an outsider, a failure. You will never be loved. And no matter how hard you try, you will always be alone." The words cut deep, echoing the insecurities Bella had carried for years. She felt as though she were drowning in her own doubts. But then, through the haze of fear, she heard a voice, Eric's voice, calling to her. "Bella," he said gently, "this is just an illusion. Don't listen to it. It's not real." Bella shook her head, her heart aching with the weight of the cruel words. But then she remembered, Eric had been through something far worse. He had faced his own fears, his own doubts, and still he stood by her. If he could do it, so could she. Taking a deep breath, Bella closed her eyes and whispered, "I am not that person. I am strong. I am worthy of love." When she opened her eyes again, the vision of the village faded. She was back in the garden, standing beside Eric, who was watching her with a look of quiet admiration. "You passed," he said softly. "You faced your fear and overcame it. Now, we're one step closer." Bella smiled, though her heart still raced. She had learned something important. Facing fear was not about eliminating it, but about accepting it and moving forward despite it. Together, they continued on, the heart of the garden waiting just ahead. Chapter 6, The Heart of the Garden. The garden grew quieter as Bella and Eric ventured deeper. The air around them was still, and though the garden was magical, the atmosphere now felt heavy with anticipation. The trials had been difficult, each one testing not only their courage but their hearts. But they had made it this far. Bella could feel that they were nearing the heart of the garden, where the final challenge awaited. As they approached a small, serene pool surrounded by luminous flowers, Eric stopped. He turned to Bella, his expression serious. Yet there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "This is it," he said softly. The heart of the garden. The pool before them shimmered with an ethereal light. Bella could see that the water was still, but within its depths, there were faint shapes moving, like echoes of memories, emotions, and dreams. It was beautiful, yet unsettling. It was as though the water held the very essence of the garden's magic, and the fate of the curse rested in its depths. Bella took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle upon her. "What do we do now?" Eric stepped closer to the pool, his voice steady. "We must make a choice. The heart will reveal itself only to those who can truly see. The curse, the magic, everything that has kept me trapped here, it can all end if we make the right choice. But you must choose carefully, Bella. The heart will test your heart one last time." Bella nodded, her thoughts swirling. She wasn't just facing a choice between breaking the curse and freeing Eric. She was facing a choice about herself, about her journey, her growth, and the love that had blossomed between her and the man who had been lost for so long. Without another word, she stepped forward. As she knelt beside the pool, The surface of the water rippled. And suddenly, the images became clearer. Bella saw Arik. But he wasn't the man she knew now. He was a prince. Proud and arrogant. Standing in a grand castle. Dismissing a beggar woman with cruelty. She saw the moment when he had rejected kindness, and how the curse had taken hold. Then, the vision shifted. She saw Arik again. But this time, he was a beast. Lost and alone in the garden. His heart filled with sorrow and regret. Bella's heart ached as she saw the pain he had endured. The years of isolation. The hopelessness. But she also saw something else. The spark of goodness in him. The strength of character that had endured through it all. Bella knew then what her heart had to do. She reached into the water. And as her fingers touched the surface, a wave of energy surged through her. The water swirled, glowing with brilliant light. And the garden around them seemed to hold its breath. Arik, Bella whispered. Her voice full of tenderness. I choose you. I choose to see you, not as a prince. Not as a beast. But as the person you are now. I choose the man who has shown me kindness. Who has faced his fears. And who has taught me that love is stronger than any curse. The light from the water grew brighter. And Bella felt a warmth spread through her. It was as though the magic of the garden itself was responding to her choice. For a moment, she felt a powerful connection with the garden. As if everything was aligning. The magic and the curse unraveling. Arik stepped forward. His expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. The transformation began slowly, like a delicate unraveling of threads. His form shifted, his features changing, as if the very essence of the curse was being undone. The dark, beastly figure faded, revealing the man Bella had come to love, the man who had been trapped by his own fears and mistakes, but who had found redemption in her eyes. Finally, the transformation was complete. Arik stood before her. No longer a beast. No longer burdened by the curse. He was whole again. A man freed from the magic that had held him captive for so long. Tears filled Bella's eyes as she looked at him. You're free, she said softly. Arik smiled. His eyes full of gratitude and love. And it's because of you. You broke the curse. Bella. You saw me for who I truly am. Without thinking, Bella stepped forward. And Arik opened his arms to her. They embraced. And in that moment, everything felt right. The garden, once dark and twisted, seemed to come alive with new light. As though it, too, was breathing a sigh of relief. The curse was broken. The magic was no longer bound by the dark forces that had once held it together. And with it, Bella and Arik's love blossomed in a way that could never be undone.